Welcome to the Wild Wild Wallflower Mandala Crochet Along, wherein we make this. This video is for part 1 of the crochet along. In part 1, we will be making this little piece, the first 6 rounds of the mandala. So if you haven't yet, you can check out my introductory video where I give you all the details that you need to know to get started in this crochet along. Or if you are ready to just jump right in, I will tell you that for this video you need some DK weight yarn, that's a 3 in the US, and scraps will work fine. You really only need a few yards of each color, as many colors as you want. You need a 3.5mm crochet hook. You're going to need scissors and a yarn needle to cut the yarn and weave in your ends. And lastly, you're going to need a little ruler, just something small, because after round 4, we are going to check out how big our piece is and make sure that it's going to fit in our hoop when we finish with part 3. So let's get started. Okay, round 1. The Stylecraft Special DK color I am using for this round is Pistachio. And I'm going to show you 2 different ways that you can start round 1, because my favorite way is with a double magic circle, and I know not everyone likes those. So first I'm going to show you that, and then I'll show you the more traditional chain loop. So hang in there if you don't want to do a magic circle. Okay, I do a double magic circle, so this is how I do it. In your non-dominant hand, you're going to place the yarn end and hold it, and then wrap the yarn around 2 or 3 fingers twice. Okay, then hold that in place. Take your hook, insert it into those loops, and pull the yarn through. Okay, now you can take your fingers out and hold that in place with your hook hand. And now arrange the yarn in your non-dominant hand, however you hold it, and then pull it tight around your hook. And I like to put my next 2 fingers in the loops to hold them taut. And then this finger is pulling the yarn tight. Then I chain 1 and pull that real tight, and that just holds everything in place really nicely. Then after that, I can just use these fingers to keep my my loops nice and sturdy for working into, but that first chain is going to hold everything nice and in place. Okay, so now we're going to chain 3 more. 1, 2, 3. So that's a total of 4 chains. That counts, the first 3 count as your first double crochet, and the next chain counts as your first chain 1 space. Now we're going to make double crochet chain 1 into these loops 7 more times. So double crochet, chain 1, that's 1, double crochet, chain 2, or chain 1, that's 2, double crochet, chain 1, 3, double crochet, chain 1, that's 4, double crochet, chain 1, 5, double crochet, chain 1, 6, and 1 more, double crochet, chain 1, that's 7. Okay, so all together you should have 8 double crochets counting your beginning chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and make sure there's chain 1 spaces between all of them. Okay, now we can close our double magic circle. To do that, find the yarn end and kind of untwist it. It tends to get mixed up in these loops, so I pull it out so that it's coming out from the base of your last double crochet nice and straight. Now pull on that just a little bit. You don't want to close the loop yet, just pull it a little bit, and you'll see one of the loops starts to get smaller. Okay, that's the loop we want to pull tight. The first loop we want to pull tight. So from the top, we're going to pull the smaller loop until the other loop is all the way tightened. And now we can go back to our yarn end, this yarn end, and pull that. And that is going to be really nice and secure, okay? You still want to weave that end in. You don't want to just snip it off at the base. You want to weave it in a little bit just to make sure it doesn't come undone. but I think you're going to find that's a really nice, secure, tight center that's going to hold all your stitches in place really well. Okay, so that's all our stitches for round 1. Now all we need to do is slip stitch to the 3rd chain from our beginning chain, and I actually like to count backwards to find that. So I find, here's my double crochet, there's the 2 loops of my double crochet right there. That's the chain 1 space, so that means these 2 loops right here count as top of my first double crochet, and I don't actually worry about going into the top 2 loops. I just kind of go right in the middle and hope for the best, because that's going to get covered up and you're never going to see it again. So slip stitch to that, and then fasten off if you're changing colors. Okay, and that is our double magic circle start. Okay, now if you want, you can do a chain loop too. So a chain loop, we start with a slip knot on our hook. All right, I don't do these very often, so this might look a little clumsy. We chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then slip stitch to the very first chain. Okay, get my yarn end out of there. I really don't do these often, so this is not going to look like I know what I'm doing. Okay, so you can chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, counts as your first double crochet, chain 1, and now into that loop, we're going to do our 7 double crochets and chain 1. So double crochet, chain 1, 7 times. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right, and now all we have to do is slip stitch to the 3rd chain. So again, I like to count backwards. Here's my double crochet top 2 loops. Here's the chain 1 space right before them. So that means this chain right here counts as the top of my double crochet. So I'll slip stitch right into that and then fasten off. There we go. Now I am going to tell you to do one more thing. You don't have to do this to the end, but you can see the center of this round 1 has a hole in it. And the center of our magic loop round 1 doesn't. That's a tiny bit of space, but that can affect what we're doing. So to close that hole, when you weave in your ends, thread your needle from that very first end, the one that comes out of the middle, and then just thread this under the base of all those double crochets. Just go around once till you're back at the beginning. Okay. Okay, so my yarn end went around once to make a loop, and now what I can do is just pull that and it will tighten everything up just like a magic loop. So go around once and then pull it, and that tightens up so there's no hole in the middle anymore. And then after it's tight, I go ahead and I weave it in a little bit more just to make sure it doesn't loosen up again, because it will. And then I'll go the other way to make sure it's really secure. Okay, so that's how you make a chain loop look like a magic circle. All right, that's it for round 1. Okay, for round 2, I am switching to the color Apple, and I'm going to start by making a slip stitch in any one of these chain 1 spaces. So slip stitch to any of those chain 1 spaces. If you are using the same color, you can just slip stitch into the next chain 1 space. All right, now We're going to make a beginning cluster by chaining 2, and now we're going to yarn over, insert your hook into that same chain 1 space and pull up a loop. Now yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Now let's do that again. Yarn over once, insert your hook into the same chain 1 space, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Okay, you should have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 3. That is the beginning cluster. Now we're going to chain 3, so 1, 2, 3, and make a cluster in the next chain 1 space. So this cluster is going to be yarn over and insert your hook into the next chain 1 space, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Okay, we're going to do that 3 times, all in that same chain 1 space. Yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. One more time, yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Okay, you should have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 4 loops to make your first cluster. Chain 3, 3, and we're going to do that in each chain 1 space all the way around. So another cluster in the next chain 1 space. And chain 3. I'll show you one more time. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. And that's your cluster. Now chain 3, and go ahead and do that in each chain 1 space all the way around. Alright, when you come back around to the beginning, I just like to make sure I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, okay, and then slip stitch to the top 2 loops of your beginning cluster and fasten off if you're changing colors. Oh wait, you have to change colors on this one. The next round we have to use new yarn, so definitely fasten off. And cut your yarn. Okay, and that is round 2. Okay, let's do round 3. So for round 3, we have to start with new yarn. Okay, you had to fasten off after round 2 and start with new yarn for round 3. For round 3, I am using the color Citron. Okay, so let's put a slip stitch on our hook. And what we're going to do is, actually, we're not going to work into round 2 at all. We are going to work all of our stitches into the tops of these round 1 double crochets. We're going to start, you can start in any one that you want. We are going to start by making a standing treble. Now, this is not particularly an easy stitch, but it is definitely possible. So if you feel like doing this, go ahead and do it along with me. If you do not like the idea of a standing treble stitch, then go ahead and just slip stitch to any one of these double crochets and chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, to count as your first treble, okay? But I am going to do a standing treble. It's really not that hard once you get used to standing stitches. So I've got my yarn on my hook, I hold the loop in place and I yarn over twice, and I hold those in place with my thumb too. Okay, then I insert my hook into the top of one of those double crochets and pull up a loop. So I'm still holding my yarn loops in place on my hook. Now I yarn over and I pull through 2 of those loops, yarn over, pull through 2 more loops, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. See, it's really not that bad, right? Okay, so now we're all at the same spot. What we do now is we chain 3. 1, 2, 3, and make another treble crochet. So it's 2 yarn overs. another treble crochet into the same round 1 double crochet. So really important, you do not let the chain space from round 2 get trapped in those stitches, okay? These are all going to be in front of round 2. They're completely separate. Okay, so that was a treble, chain 3 treble. Now we're going to make the same exact stitches into the next round 1 double crochet. So yarn over twice and make a treble into the next round 1 double crochet. Make sure you don't get round 2 caught up in that. Chain 3 and then make another treble crochet. Okay, there's no chain spaces between the trebles, okay? It's treble, chain 3, treble, treble, chain 3, treble. Okay, so now let's do that all the way around in every round 1 double crochet. Treble, chain 3, and another treble. Okay, that's 3. Keep going all the way around. It can help if you just bend those round 2 stitches behind your work so that the top of that round 1 stitch really stands out. Just fold them back like that, and then you can get to the top of that round 1 stitch a lot easier. Okay, and now slip stitch to that very first treble crochet, or that would be the 4th starting chain. If you started with chains, you're going to have like 7 chains in a row. You will have 7 chains in a row. So it'll be the 4th one up. All right, there we go. And fasten off. That is round 3. Okay, round 4. This is where it gets fun. I am using the color Sunshine for this round. Okay, so we're going to start with new yarn again this round, so with a slip knot on your hook. Okay, so round 4 is the most difficult round in the pattern, and it's not that bad, trust me. But if you can get past this round, everything after this will be smooth sailing, okay? So, bear with me. Remember, this is only round 4, so it's nice and short. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work the post stitch around one of these round 2 clusters. So all of round 4 is worked into round 2, but it is worked between the trebles of round 3. So I'm going to show you how that happens. So slip knot of yarn on your hook and insert your hook under and behind any one of those round 2 clusters like that, okay? Then yarn over, pull up a loop. Then yarn over, pull through those 2 loops, and that's it. That was so easy, right? You just made a front post single crochet around the round 2 cluster. That's so simple. Okay, now what I want you to do is, you see this round 3 chain space and how the round 2 chain space is peeking underneath it? Okay, I want you to insert your hook under the round 2 chain 2 space, the green one, and then behind it like that, so that you're not behind the yellow one, not behind the round 3 chain space, you're just behind the round 2 chain space, right? Oh, except I forgot to tell you to yarn over first. That's okay, that was good practice. So yarn over and insert your hook behind just the round 2 chain space. Then yarn over and pull up a loop and finish a double crochet. Okay, look, see how simple that is? Let's make another double crochet that way. Just under the round 2 chain 2 space, I'm sorry, that's a chain 3 space. Make a double crochet. Okay, so that's 2 double crochets into that round 2 chain 3 space. Now chain 2 and make 2 more double crochets in the same spot. See, it's really not that bad, right? Okay. Here we go. So that was 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, all in the round 2 chain 3 space without trapping the round 3 chain 3 space. Okay, now we're going to make a front post single crochet around the next cluster. So again, we're going to insert our hook between, so now it's a little tighter because we have some stitches in there. So now we're going to insert a hook between this round 3 treble and the round 2 cluster, okay, and then bring it back up on the other side of the cluster and make a front post single crochet. There we go. See, not too bad, right? All right, so now we're going to work into this round 2 chain space again. Again, we've got some stitches in there, so now it's getting a little bit tighter, but it's the same principle. So yarn over, because we're going to do a double crochet, and insert your hook under that round 2 chain space and up from behind it without getting the round 3 chain space. And make double crochet, that's 2 double crochets, and chain 2, and then 2 more double crochets. Okay, so we just do this all the way around. So it's getting a little tighter, so let's find between the treble and the cluster, insert my hook, come up from behind the cluster, and front post single crochet. All right, now into this round 2 chain 3 space, we're going to do 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 more double crochets. Okay, let's just do this all the way around. Okay, so when you get back to the very beginning, you can slip stitch to that first single post crochet to join. But if you want a really nice polished look for your mandala, which I want because I'm going to hang this on my wall, let's do an invisible join. I'm going to show you how to do that real fast. If you know how to do it, go ahead and do it, and then switch, fast forward to the next round. Okay, so what you do for an invisible finish is take your hook out, pull some of this yarn through just to secure it, then cut the yarn and pull it through. Okay, don't pull it tight or anything, just pull it through, and then thread this yarn in onto your needle. Okay, so to do the invisible join, here are the top 2 loops of my very first single crochet. I'm actually going to go to the next stitch, and I'm going to take my yarn needle, go under the top 2 loops of the stitch after the front post single crochet. Okay, and pull the yarn through that. Okay, don't tighten it yet. And now I'm going to go back to my last double crochet that I made and find the top 2 loops of that double crochet. Here they are right here. And I'm going to go in between 2 of them, down the center of the stitch, down the back, kind of grabbing some of these back loops too. Okay. Okay, so now what we can do is tighten this up very gently. And what we've done is we've made 2 new top loops for that front post single crochet. So you can just barely tell where it is if you know what to look for, but for the most part, this is truly an invisible join. You won't see it. It'll be very hard to find later, unless you know what to look for. So now this is a good time to go ahead and just weave your end in because you want to secure this. It is not the most secure until you weave those ends in. You don't need to knot it or anything like that, but go ahead and weave your yarn end in. I like to go through a few stitches one way and then turn around and go a few stitches back the other way to really keep it secure. And since we're using this just as the mandala, just hanging on our wall, it doesn't actually need to be a big deal how we weave this in, because we're not going to be too rough on it after we get it in the hoop. If this were something like a pillow or a scarf that you were wearing, I would tell you otherwise. Okay. Okay. For the invisible join, I just do that to keep it secure, and then that will look really nice when it's hanging on the wall. After round 4 is a good time to check your gauge. So, take your piece and, just kind of stretch it into place. It should be sitting pretty nicely at this point. Make sure those points are nice and pointy, and grab a ruler and just measure from point to point across. And it should be about 3 inches. About 3 inches. Yep, I like to turn 90 degrees and get a measurement both ways just to make sure my piece isn't skewed. So if you're close to 3 inches, you're doing great. If you are much more than 3 inches, you might want to consider starting over with a smaller crochet hook. And when I say more, I'd say more than 3.5 inches, you might want to start over with a smaller hook. If you're within 3.5 inches, you can always leave off a couple of the rounds at the end. I'll tell you which ones when we get there in part 3 to compensate for any extra size you might have. There's some wiggle room there. If your piece is much smaller than 3 inches, if you're getting close to 2.5 inches at this point, you are either going to need to start over with a bigger hook or go and buy a smaller hoop. Either of those options. There's going to be a lot of stretch at the end. I really stretched these mandalas into the hoop because it just makes them look really nice and they stay in place and they don't droop at all. We want there to be a lot of stretch. But, if you're 2.5 inches or smaller at this point, I would do one of those two options. 2 3/4 inches, I might even consider starting over at that just because it is going to get kind of tight if you get much smaller than that. But anywhere close to 3 inches, within 1/2 inch of that, you should be good to just go ahead and continue. Okay, in round 5, I am using the color Shrimp. We are going to start with a slip knot on our hook. Yes, we're starting with new yarn again. And round 5 is actually worked into round 3, entirely into round 3. So we're going to ignore all these round 4 petals and just work into the spots back here in round 3. So go ahead and pick any of these round 3 chain 3 spaces, and we're going to make a standing single crochet. I do not have an alternative for a standing single crochet because this is a really easy stitch. You can definitely do this, I promise. To make a standing single crochet, you just put a slip knot on your hook, insert your hook into that chain 3 space, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. Very simple, I promise you can do that one. Okay, so standing single crochet in any of those round 3 chain 3 spaces, then chain 1. Okay, now find the tops of those round 3 trebles, kind of pull them out so you can see them, and go ahead and push round 4 down so that you can see what you're doing in round 3. Now I want you to work this in between the 2 trebles. We didn't put a chain space or anything between those 2 trebles because we didn't want it to be too loose in there. So we're going to work a double crochet right in between the 2 trebles. Just insert your hook between the 2 posts and pull up a loop to make a double crochet. And then chain 2 and make another double crochet in the same spot. Okay, then chain 1 and single crochet in the next chain 3 space. And we're just going to do this all the way around. Chain 1 and then make in between the next 2 trebles. Go ahead and pull on them a little so you can see them. In between the 2 trebles, we're going to make double crochet, chain 2, double crochet. Okay, now chain 1 and single crochet in the next chain 3 space, chain 1, find the next 2 trebles and make double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, chain 1, and now just repeat this all the way around. Okay, when you get back to the very beginning of this round, you can just slip stitch to the first single crochet. There's no need here to do any kind of fancy invisible join because we're going to work over this and you won't even see it. So I just slip stitch and fasten off here. And that is round 5. For round 6, I'm going to start with the color pomegranate. If you want, you can continue with the same color from round 5. All you need to do is just slip stitch over. So you'll finish round 5 with a slip knot to one of the single crochets, slip stitch over into the next chain 1, into the next double crochet, and then into this next chain 2 space. Okay? And then you will chain 3 for your first double crochet. If you're starting with a new color like I am, I'm going to make a standing double crochet in just any one of these chain 2 spaces from round 5. So to do a standing double crochet with the slip knot on my hook, yarn over once and then hold those in place with my thumb or your finger if that's if you do pencil hold. Okay, hold those in place and then insert your yarn into the chain 2 space and pull up a loop. So I'm still holding everything in place on my hook with my thumb. Now yarn over and pull through 2 loops on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through 2 more loops, and that's a standing double crochet. If you don't want to do that, you can always slip stitch to the chain 2 space and chain 3 to count as your double crochet. Okay, now we're going to make 2 more double crochets into this chain space for a total of 3 so far, and then chain 1 and make 3 more double crochets into that chain space. Okay, now we are going to make a single crochet into the next round 4 petal. So find the next point of round 4 and the chain 2 space that is at the point of that petal and make a single crochet into that chain 2 space. Just ignore everything about round 5 that's behind that. And then we're going to go to the next chain 2 space of round 5 and make 3 double crochets. And then chain 1 and 3 more double crochets. Okay, and now we go to the next round 4 petal and make a single crochet in that chain 2 space. Again, just ignore everything about round 5 that's behind that petal. Don't work into any of those stitches. We're actually going to need them for round 7, so make sure they don't get caught up in your work. Okay, then we're just going to work that way all the way around. Okay, when you've made it all the way around for round 6 and you make your last single crochet into that last round 4 petal, now we are going to fasten off. No matter what color you're using next round, we're going to fasten off this round. I'm going to show you an invisible join again. If you don't want to do an invisible join, just go ahead and slip stitch to that first double crochet. But I am going to do an invisible join.
So to do an invisible join, after you do your last stitch, go ahead and cut the yarn and then pull it through, pull the loop through so it's just coming straight out of that last stitch, and then thread your needle. We'll go through this all over again so you can see it again. Okay, now you're going to want to find your very first stitch. Find the top 2 loops of your very first stitch. So here's the top 2 loops of my very first double crochet. Then go to the second stitch, the top 2 loops of the second stitch, and thread your needle under them and pull it through. Don't pull it tight yet. Go back to that last stitch, that last single crochet we made, and find the top 2 loops of that stitch and go under just the back loop. And if you can, pick up the loop that's below the back loop in the back, but at the very least go through the back loop only. And thread your needle through there. Okay, so now this creates 2 new loops. Oops, I got a little tangled there. This is going to create 2 new loops for your very first double crochet. So don't pull them too tight. You want them to look about the same size as all the other loops. Okay, now while you're here, go ahead and weave your end in to make sure it is secure and that it won't loosen back up. And then sometimes when you do an invisible join, it can look a little bit loose in here. But what you can do is just take, when you're weaving in your ends, take that first end that from the beginning of the round and use it to pull those 2 stitches together, the first and last stitch together. So I just wove it under one of the loops of the last stitch and pulled it tight. And now I'll weave it in so that it stays put, and that will make that invisible join really invisible so you can't see it at all. You don't want that looseness or that gap between those 2 stitches, so that gets rid of it. And then it is really smooth looking. Okay, so that is round 6, and that is part 1.